G'day everyone, welcome back to In My Shed. I'm BC. I thought I'd be on a bit of a roll and put another video in while I've got this equipment up on the tool and cutter grinder. The one thing we didn't do over the last couple of days was check out the gear. Are we grinding with reasonable equipment, or have we set it all up to shit? It's a little bit different. I'll bring you down shortly to have a look. I'll show you the sub plate that I manufactured to go onto this or other grinders to give me a bit more of a field of view, a bit more workbench space. I found with the Clarkson, its biggest limitation is the small table. What the hell do you do with big attachments? You just can't mount them up there. So that's a handy thing to look. I've shown it before, but this time you can look at it with a bit of rust and a few barnacles. But also, I've had a few people put stories up recently of I bought a 5 Morse taper to 3 Morse taper socket and it's 5 thou out. Well, yeah, there is quite a lot of stuff that comes out of the cheaper manufacturers that's bloody rubbish, but some of it is fairly good. When I bought this Spindexer, it was a real piece of crap, and as I said in an earlier video, the only thing that was any good were the bits you need. The spindle and the front face were well machined and perpendicular to each other, so I had to machine the base to suit. That's the sort of thing you expect when you're paying a quarter of the price. The chuck surprised me. I have a 5C to ER32 adapter in the front, and that seems to have reasonable run out. But what I'll do is I'll swing the table around a little bit to give you a better view, and we'll sort of work backwards. We'll throw that drill back up in the head and check the shank for run out. I'll put it back the front in the chuck, and then we'll check inside of the chuck, the outside of the chuck, and the inside of the Spindexer itself, just to see how good this thing is out of Asia. So I'll change the camera position and bring you back in a few seconds. Okay guys, here's a bit of an overview of what we had yesterday. Although yesterday the Spindexer was turned around towards the grinding wheel, I can't get any better access with the shells etc. here, so I've had to take one bolt out to swing it around. It's quite a cheap setup. I did machine the base perpendicular and square to the shaft, and a couple of places on the flange where it bolts down to try and get a bit more repeatability. One thing that just came to mind as I was mounting up this drill bit, yesterday it spun quite substantially in the drill chuck over on the milling machine, and I thought, hell, how am I going to check it for run out? The shank could be all marred up, and it isn't. So maybe that's a bit of a message to the local manufacturers. If the Chinese can make drills that don't mar up in the chuck, why the hell does Australian made product do so? Anyway, I've got about 3/4 inch protruding, maybe a little more out of the collar chuck. It's only done up by hand. And if I pull up and down for a plain bush machine, I'm getting about 2/100ths of a millimetre, which I don't think is too bad. So I've backed off the collar at the back. So I'll see if I can zoom you in a little more. Let's see what sort of run out we get. Okay, that's a little bit closer. So that's 9, 10, 11, 12/100ths, or 0.12 millimetre. I would say about 5 thou in the old money. And yes, that is more than I expected because the tool appeared to grind quite well yesterday. But let's see where it is. Is it in the collet? Is it in the collet holder? The front of the body where that's taper ground? And also we'll see how the chuck itself seats into the 5C adapter. Now, one thing I have come across before, the thread on the arbor that draws the 5C item back in isn't really good, and I don't know how good the internals are, but yeah, so far 0.12 millimetre, although it seems to have come down a little bit. I think if I pull on it and put a bit of preload on the front bush, it comes down to 0.07 or about 3,000. Oh, that's a little bit better. Okay, that's the drill and the collet out of the way. Putting a little bit of preload on it. Sort of averaging out at about 3 to 4 hundredths of a millimetre. And without preloading that back end here, I think that's pretty darn good. It's about 1,000 or a bit over for a knockoff item, not too bad. Let's see if I can, no, I won't be able to swing it around far enough, I don't think, to get that. I'll figure this out and bring you back in. Okay, I've sort of got it set up to do the inside. So about the same, about 4.5 to 5 thou run out on the inside face that the collet works on. Bring it back up. Now, I'm not trying to pretend that this is the last word indicator or anything. It's only a cheap Asian indicator. I have too many accidents with these things to buy anything of any value. So 0.05 millimetre there, and while I've got it in this position, if I can swing the gizzard of this thing around enough, now I'm measuring on the actual inner spindle of the spindexer itself. Now if I try and keep my preload on the handle, once I preload it to take any movement out of it, I'm getting about 0.02 of a millimetre, which I don't think is too bad for something like this. So it might be my adapter. Okay. Get that out of the way. And we'll take the adapter out. By the way, this is a that'll be the phone, Reg. G'day there guys, back again. The boss has her left. Okay, I've since got the 5C to ER32 collet chuck back in, and I cleaned it up a bit first. I think I had a little bit of poo carcass in there because it's down to about 5/100ths of a millimetre, maybe less, and that's where I'd like to see it. So a bit of hygiene goes a long way, not just for the runny nose. There we go, back to where we were. I don't expect any improvement there. And without any preload on the arbor, I'm quite happy with that. That's about 2/100ths. Back in on the seat. Okay, that's running at about 2/100ths as well. You've got to appreciate too, if there's any axial movement, that'll give you a false indication because it's on a taper. That's running at around 2/100ths as well. So, what do you get when you buy a cheap product? Well, you get something that's cheap and you save a few dollars, that's for bloody sure. You do get something that you can rework up to a reasonable standard. It's never going to be a Suburban Tool Company or anything like that, or Harrig. I've got a Harrig grind awl that I'll be doing videos on in the future. But look, for the sort of work I did yesterday on that zero angle drill and doing small punches, making small boring bars, that sort of thing, I would recommend you buy this product. I've bought, I think, that 5C ER adapter and some collet chucks from a place down in Melbourne called M&G Productions. And you may have a bit of a language barrier to communicate with them, but they're bloody wonderful people. Pricing is exceptional, and the product has been a very acceptable standard for the cheap price that you pay, so I won't bitch about it. But there you go, that's what you get. If you clean it out and get all the crap out of it, it does seem to come up to a reasonable standard. Pity about all the grinding dust now I've got to clean the pig, but that's all part of the fun, isn't it? Okay, do an end screen soon. Righto guys, that's it for now. I need a bit of a breather from this for a few days at least. What do you get when you buy a cheaper product? Well, sometimes you get a reasonable buy, sometimes you get junk. You just have to be very, very careful for what you get. I've got a J&S 1302 universal cylinder grinder coming in a couple of days to a week when it dries out. We've had bloody rain again, and that'll be interesting because I'll be making a lot of arbors for it and I'll be correcting a lot of arbors, but I'd really like a set of bench centers so I can check these things. How do you know where the error is? Just by cleaning up that arbor, I got 3/100ths of a millimetre out of it and got it down to 200ths, which is acceptable. A lot of it comes back to you, and it comes back on me. I should have checked the bloody thing before I ground the drill. Your source errors are errors at the source, so yeah, slap my wrist on that one. Okay, please like and subscribe. I hope the audio is better with this. I'm using the old camcorder, so that'll be quite interesting to see how it goes. All the best.